Welcome to Ecotopia U Media. I'm your host, Melissa McGinnis, joined by my co-host, Tom Wright, with a very special guest today, Eric Lombardi. We're at the Zero Waste Conference here in downtown Los Angeles. Tell us a little bit about your history with zero waste.
Glad to be here, thank you. Glad to be at the Zero Waste Business Conference because we've been talking to the business community for 20 years now about getting involved, and they seem to be serious finally and actually moving forward. So I've been doing zero waste stuff. I was part of the group that created, I was the first national spokesman for the Zero Waste Group, Grassroots Recycling Network, in 1996. So we're almost 20 years old now, which blows my mind. When we created that organization, a lot of us had been on the National Recycling Coalition's board. And we helped the recycling revolution of the 90s. From 90 to 95 was an amazing 5 years in this country. It was kind of like, boom, recycling was everywhere. But then it was interesting because it got co-opted very quickly by what we call big trash, the companies that own the landfills and the incinerators and all the trucks and stuff. So a group of us split off the national recycling movement and said, you know what, recycling is just the beginning. Really, we're talking about 90% of what's in your trash can has a market. These are resources. There's very little true waste in the world. So recycling is great, but we have to go beyond it. We have to go to waste prevention, we have to go to composting, fixing things, durable and all that. So for the first 10 years or so, we were laughed at. We seriously were. Even the recycling pioneers didn't like us. I won't name names, but some of the founders of the recycling movement, they know how I feel. But some of the founders of the recycling movement who really enjoyed finally being accepted from 90 to 95 felt like this spin-off group, we went too far. All of a sudden we were making recycling this laughing thing. You know, it's like zero, nobody's gonna get to zero. Well, we never said you had to get to zero. We knew up front that was gonna be a controversial thing, so we said, look, at this time in our history, if you can reach 90% landfill diversion, you've changed the world. So let's go with 90% for a while, almost 20 years now. And it's true, any company or community that hits 90% or home, you've really changed your relationship to waste. And that was our goal.
Explain diversion to the audience. Explain.
When I say diversion, okay, so everybody throws stuff away, okay? And like I said, it's not waste. But when you throw something, it's a discard. So you're discarding things that are resources that we want to keep into our local economy. So some of it's recyclable, some of it's compostable, some of it's reusable, some of it can be fixed. Microwave ovens, we run fix-it clinics where the microwave ovens are brought in by people and it's usually the on-off switch. And for $5, we fix a $300 machine. And we actually teach people how to fix their own microwave. So that's what I'm saying is, you know, so diversion means that stuff is not going to get buried or burned in a trash incinerator. Because if it's buried or burned, it is destroyed. It is gone forever. When we all know recycling an aluminum can go almost endlessly through the cycle. Recycling a HDPE milk jug can almost keep going and going. Recycling a good piece of paper can go 9 times. You know, we're talking about a resource that's, once it's there, keep it there. So diversion from destruction to the circular economy, the zero waste economy. That's what we mean by diversion. That's only one number to track though. Even if we're recycling 100% of our stuff, we're still using resources and energy and water. And on a planet that's 7 billion, 8 billion, 9 billion, with resources shrinking, that's not a model for the future. So we need to start looking at how we fulfill the goods and services of our lives. For example, in my neighborhood, I have a lawnmower, and everyone on my block has a lawnmower. And does everyone on our block need a lawnmower? Probably not if this thing called the sharing economy actually got going. And in the age of the internet—
You're using it basically per person, maybe a half hour a month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in the age of the internet now, where we're connected with our neighbors so quickly and easily, without having to go knock on the door, which a lot of people won't want to do. So in the age of the internet, we can now share resources and say, well, I've got the mower, and somebody else can say, I've got this and I've got that, and you can create a sharing
I'm seeing companies that are doing like a barter system instead of paying like a normal business model. They're exchanging. Oh, we've got to get rid of like these 2 speedboats. And we'll do the marketing for you, and then they're selling off the speedboat or putting it to auction.
I can get a speedboat for mowing my lawn.
It's it's a barter system. It's interesting.
So I do think that our relationship to the material world is what we're talking about, and what we need to do is continue to make ourselves happy, giving us the stuff we want, but we need to dematerialize the way we do it. Okay, and there's lots of creative ideas on how to do that. There's money to be made. Look at Uber. You know, the internet is enabling all sorts of new business models. So I think that that's where the zero waste movement's moving forward, in that reducing waste in everything we do actually leads to new opportunities to still fulfill our desires for physical and services and things like that.
So you mentioned, because we're here at the business conference, that several businesses are getting on board, or more than you thought are coming on board for a zero waste objective.
Yes.
What are they doing? How are they changing? How are they doing that?
Large companies have been leading the way for the last 5 years or so. And the reason is because for a large company, waste means money. And so they've gone upstream and redesigned the way they do things within, because it's a closed system and they have 100% control. So all of a sudden they're looking at how they do things and go, wow, if we reduce waste, we save money. So General Motors, amazing. Over 100 zero waste to landfill plants. And I was just talking to the program manager, and he said, we probably reuse 5%, we probably burn 5%, and we recycle 90%. That has changed the world. And he said it has changed the world at GM.
It has to save them phenomenal
amounts of money. Yeah. And he's very excited as well, because he said all of our recycling activities at these 100 plants has created economic development in the communities where their facilities are. And they are better corporate citizens. And they love that part of it. He said that almost drives us now, is working with the local community on our recycling programs.
Green jobs and education. And then shockingly, the company's making money.
They're saving money.
Saving money, so it's a win-win.
That's right, it's a true win-win. There is one loser, the landfill owner, or the incinerator owner, okay? And let's be honest about that. People get squeamish? No. It's okay that the landfills and the incinerators lose here. Because they're the source of that's pollution. That's the problem, okay?
Right, so we're encouraging just a whole different way of thinking, systems thinking. That's
right.
And everything has to evolve anyway, so we're just evolving from old thought, old behavior.
Absolutely, redesigning the way we live on the earth is ultimately what we're doing.
That's wonderful. Any tips for our viewers at home if they want to try zero waste?
Well, in the age of the internet, start there. Start doing your research, find the stories, because lots of people are doing amazing things. There's some newsletters you can sign up for, like My Zero Waste House and I Don't Love Waste, or whatever that is. So there's a lot of resources that you can just plug into and make it part of who you are. That's the thing about zero waste. It is a paradigm shift in how you see the world, and it will touch everything, but in a good way.
Once you start the awareness, like just even looking at your trash can, it's shocking to me how much packaging is going into the trash. I think just thinking about, your purchasing, and then how do you divert it from there if you have to. Well, I'm inspired. Thank you so much. I'm really inspired from just like our home viewer level to what we're hearing about in terms of business.
Can you give us plug yourself a little bit more? You've been very modest here. You started a group called EcoCycle. Explain the whole. Give us a little history of Eric Lombardi.
Okay, a little history of Eric Lombardi. First, I'll correct that. I did not found EcoCycle. There was a guy before me named Pete Grogan, who's one of the recycling pioneers, who actually wasn't crazy about zero waste when it first came out, but now he's totally on board. That was kind of funny that he didn't jump on board early. But anyway, I've been doing resource conservation in energy, water, and waste for 30 years. And the reason I can go from resource to resource is because society wastes all those resources about the same way. And the policy fixes where our government is supposed to change the rules are very similar in energy, water, and waste. So I've had a wonderful career in resource conservation. There's real savings here, there's real pollution reduction here. Everyone that I meet wants to do the right thing, but a lot of people are confused as to how to do the right thing. So I've been fortunate in translating cutting edge around the world back to everyday
So
businesses.
you say around
and
the world. So where have you been engaged, and what have you seen? Where have you gone?
Yeah, I don't know how many countries now I've been an advisor, but I've been in Romania, over by their Chernobyl nuclear plant, not far from that, and I helped a little Romanian trash company.
I noticed you were glowing a bit.
Yes, it was great though. I helped this little Romanian trash company start paper recycling because there was a paper mill nearby. And they were so excited that they painted all of their dumpsters gold because there was gold in the garbage.
That's wonderful.
But, and then from Romania, where it was really, really tough conditions, poor, then I've gone to islands throughout the Pacific. I've done a lot of Pacific Island work. Islands are interesting because they're a closed system. So New Zealand, Saipan, American Samoa, Hawaii, Tobago in the Caribbean. So you can see I like to pick certain locations to work in. And then,
I guess during the Northern Hemisphere winter, you've gone there.
I try.
Yeah.
So, and I've been to Europe. I've been an advisor to the largest water and waste company in the world, Suez.
Yes.
For 3 years, I was an advisor to Suez. Yep. Yeah. That was fascinating for me because I had direct access every 6 months to the CEO, and I saw how an 18 billion company looks at the world. Mm-hmm. And they knew I was against trash incineration, and that's why they recruited me. They said, we need to understand why you're against it. And we spent 3 years discussing it. And I'll take a little bit of credit. I moved them away, I think, from the mass burn plants, the $300 million mass burn plants, to the smaller conversion techs, where they were looking at pyrolysis for certain limited waste streams. I count that as a victory, because I think mass burn is a major mistake, and conversion techs, it's in the air still. We're not quite sure whether or not they're going to work. So that was good that Suez is moving away. So where else? Yeah, I've been around the world. Everyone has the same problem. Not everyone has the same problem. I shouldn't say that. I haven't worked in Latin America, where some of the waste picker activities are very exciting. Mm-hmm. Bogota has got one of the most amazing street picker. They've organized the street pickers, the rag pickers, into a union. The mayor gave them uniforms. A job program for, I think it's 5,000 people on the streets. They each have big adult tricycles with. So Latin America is doing some fantastic jobs creation through this sort of thing. They collect everything wet dry, recycling, and composting.
That. This is interesting. How much time do we?
We're over 10, so you're good.
Go ahead. So this is an interesting distinction. Explain wet dry, because this is.
Okay. So looking ahead, there's two things I would bring up.
Yeah.
The first is cyberspace, internet. I don't think the sustainability movement has actually used the opportunities the internet offers. And so I'm glad to hear you're doing it. You're creating media channels through the internet. Critical opportunity for us to bypass corporate media, which is very much supporting the status quo. Mm-hmm. The second thing that's interesting for me is this thing called wet dry. So right now, San Francisco is leading the world because they came up with the 3-bin system. They call it the Fantastic 3. 1 bin for recycling, 1 bin for composting, 1 bin for landfill, okay? Well, I think there's another iteration to go, and that's just 2 bins. The key being the composting bin. The banana peels and the yard waste. The wet bin. Mm-hmm. So once we educate everybody about what is wet and what goes in there, if we can get everybody to do that correctly, then everything else goes in the other bin because it's dry. And if it's dry, we can sort it at the modern facilities. I run a $20 million recycling facility. The technology the last 20 years has been fantastic, its evolution, and we're not done. So I think we're going to be able to sort the dry side. And now the dumpsters in the alleyways are going to be just as big. They're going to be full of desks and chairs and file cabinets and your recyclables, and that's all dry. So you don't even have a trash can anymore. It's going to go to the dry plant where we're going to sort and recycle 90% of it probably.
95%.
Exactly.
Because the distinction here is because the wetness hasn't contaminated the dry and vice versa, it's much easier to make distinction to sorting.
That's right.
Do you think that there'll be a shift in packaging in terms of more recyclable packaging versus some of the clamshells and things that we've discussed?
You know, I don't. That's been one of the biggest disappointments, actually.
It's a conundrum.
It is a conundrum because this flexible plastic packaging has a lot of positive environmental traits, but it's not recyclable or reusable. So we're all scratching our heads going, what are we going to do with this flexible plastic packaging? I understand why it exists. I understand that it's going to grow. There's not a good answer for it. So no, I don't think the wet-dry system is necessarily going to impact the upstream design of anything. I think that's a whole nother issue we have to work on and focus on. But I don't think it's going to hurt anything either. And I know a lot of deep green environmentalists don't like the wet-dry because they said, well, that just takes the whole education component out. If everything's going to be recycled in the dry side, as much as you can,
but the wet
and composted, then they said, what are we educating about? And it's like, you know what? If we get everybody to separate wet dry, we don't need to educate them anymore. If they separate correctly, the industry will then market it.
Right.
Okay, which is our goal, is to keep the stuff in the economy. We need to go upstream and have that education and have the revolution in packaging upstream. That's really where it has to happen.
At design level.
At the design level, thank you.
At the design level.
Yeah, when I say upstream, I mean it's at the
I think
industrial
there's an
design.
education component in terms of the wet. Like, not many people relate like food to the earth and going back into the earth.
Right.
So I think like that's kind of a big thought process in terms of an educational piece. I think some people think food comes from a box versus, you know, being part of the planet. We need the soil and we need to kind of enrich this. So maybe that would be a positive for that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's just at least to say how this
Food comes from soil. You got to go back into the soil.
Just to understand the link, just to get the cycle in their mind that that's what they're part of.
Well, I feel like we could be talking with Eric all day.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff, and I guess look for wet dry, maybe more conversations around that, and maybe some upcycle thinking.
Well,
package.
If things are designed upstream correctly, then a lot of recyclables would be upcyclable.
Right.
Because you'd think of designing it so it had value in the market that pulled it. That would be brilliant. That'd be the best of all. Yeah.
And take advantage of the internet to answer all your questions. Like Eric pointed out, there's so many great resources out there. So thank you for inspiring us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.